Hello everyone, my name is Meghan LeVota and I offer wisdom, tools, and support for personality integration. And today I'm going to be continuing on my series in which I'm giving each of the 16 personality types a love letter. And today I'm talking about the ENTJ personality. So if you're new to typology, the ENTJ personality, they are extroverted, intuitive, they prefer thinking over feeling, and they are more of a judger rather than a perceiver. ENTJs, their dominant cognitive function is extroverted thinking. So the first thing that they do is they acknowledge all of the measurable, facts in the external world, and they use logic in order to make decisions that affect the entire group. And then the second function that they use is introverted intuition. They use their introverted intuitions to support and prop up their logical goals that they use with their dominant function of extroverted thinking. So extroverted thinking and introverted intuition are the two functions that make up the personality of the ENTJ. So if you are new to my channel, I'm actually an ENFJ, so I share the same auxiliary function as the ENTJ. I also use introverted intuition to help me set my goals. And introverted intuition is a very visionary function. And as an EJ, you and I both, ENTJ, we very much care about making an impact on the collective, the group as a whole, society as a whole. We want to make an impact. But the way that I make an impact as an ENFJ is different than the way an ENTJ would. Where an ENTJ wants to do something that works for the group. They want to either create a business that is useful for people. They want to get into a career where they could be very useful. They want to pretty much be useful in everything they do. They want to make things work better. They want to be, they want to move things along. They want to help society progress. And the way that ENTJs help society progress is by showing us a better way to do things. Saying, hey, like, we've been doing it this way, but actually we keep getting stuck in these same like 5 snags, and if we did it this way instead, we actually would be a lot more effective in the long run, because we wouldn't keep having to solve this problem, and instead if we just did X, Y, and Z, we would be able to not even have the problem to begin with and get our result a lot faster. So that is the way that ENTJs really make an impact. Whereas for me as an ENFJ, it's a lot easier for me to come at it from the emotional perspective. If you guys can tell, I'm trying really hard to get to the point here, because ENTJs really value getting to the point. And you see, as an ENFJ, I really care about relating to the person I'm talking to. So the way that I impact people is by wanting to establish a connection with them and wanting to make sure we're on the same page. And I am much more about rallying people behind a cause rather than showing people that you should do X, Y, and Z instead of this in order to get a better results. ENTJs are very effective. They know how to execute on tasks in order to get there. You know, they're all about the cause and effect. And that is what I love about you guys, ENTJ, because we think similarly, we might have similar visions, but I tend to get stuck. I can get very stuck on how I get somewhere. I have my vision, I know it's possible, and I can, from a feeling perspective, I can get myself, motivated to reach a goal. I can emotionally process things and get myself into the confidence in which I believe that I can reach that goal. But, you know, it takes a little bit of trial and error to figure out the best way to execute it. And that is where I say I have so much respect for ENTJs. Because, yeah, what I was going to say earlier is that part of me is like, I'm trying to talk quicker and more concisely than I normally would, because I am trying to relate to you guys, ENTJ, because, you know, as an FE person, extroverted feeling, I really care about, you know, the bonds that I'm establishing and the connection that I'm establishing with people, and realizing that you have to know your audience in order to get your point across. So everyone knows that ENTJs are really, you know, effective and all of that. If you were to Google ENTJ, you'd probably find a lot of this is that they're great leaders, and they are, you know, tend to be great like CEOs and businessmen. They have these new ideas and they look at problems with fresh eyes, and they're able to come up with these solutions that have never been done before. But there is this whole other side to ENTJs that I want to appreciate here, is that for you guys are just so, I would say strong and resilient. What I love about ENTJs is the way that you are always willing to take risks and, I guess, do the right thing no matter what like people think of you. ENTJs are just, they're so great at setting boundaries and really doing, like, I guess, the dirty work of what they believe needs to get done in order to make the world a better place, and whatever that means, and whatever that means for them. And it can be very lonely to be an ENTJ at times, because oftentimes people don't know how to crack the exterior of an ENTJ, because ENTJs don't want to waste their energy whenever they are so aware of that they need to be managing their energy in a effective way. And so if you if you don't really seem valuable to the ENTJ, they probably are not going to want to waste their energy on you. And if a project doesn't seem valuable or worth the ENTJ's time, they probably aren't going to want to invest in that project. So ENTJs, if you have not quite found your thing of like what you really want to create and, you know, like your purpose, or if you haven't really found your people, it can be very lonely to be you, because the thing is that you think differently. You just think differently than most people, and you are in the minority compared to most people, because and I relate to you on this, because out of all the people in the world, now these statistics keep coming in, so take this with a grain of salt, because this is just what the MBTI says with their tests. So, but in general, what you'll often read is that about 70% of the population are sensors, and about 30% are intuitives. And amongst those intuitives, the NJs are even more rare than the NPs. And ENTJs are one of the rarest personality types. And I think the last it's been tested was, it's at about 2% of the population. You guys are about as rare as me as an ENFJ. But the thing is that for us as ENFJ and ENTJ, we don't necessarily want to be really different and rare. Like, we want our way of thinking to be, we want our NI to be out into the world. Whereas INTJs and INFJs are a little bit more comfortable being behind the scenes, and, you know, they might not necessarily need to get everyone on board with what their NI is seeing. For us as ENJs, we have the NI and then SE in the middle of our top 4 stack. So our tertiary SE has this strong need for our NI to actually become real in reality. And every time you have an idea, ENTJ, that you know is going to make things work better, you have the grit and the stamina to use your SE in order to make it happen. And you have this sense of boldness in you to do that. And from my perspective as an ENFJ, I'm so grateful that there are ENTJs out there in the world who are doing this in, I guess, the other way. They're doing the hard work in these other areas that I guess are not my strength, but we see things similarly. So, like, for example, like, one of my uncles is a lawyer and an ENTJ, and we see things very similarly. We see a lot of the same, I guess, core problems in society. And not that I couldn't be a lawyer, not that I'm not smart enough to be a lawyer, But to do all of the work of having to argue things constantly and having to prove facts to people is very draining to me. So that sort of work is just, I know it's important, but it is so emotionally draining for me to have to craft arguments constantly, that I'm just so happy that there are the ENTJ lawyers in the world, or, you know, ENTJ, whatever you're doing, whatever your job is, whatever your thing is. I'm glad that you guys are out there fighting the fight and, you know, making NI real, you know, establishing new systems in the world, making things better. And NI is all about this constant improvement. You're constantly one step ahead of the curve. You probably are the sort of person in your career who needs to be in the know of the trends and where it's going and everything. And you just feel more responsible for that. You aren't the type to just listen to the status quo and just be content. Like, you're always growing, and that sort of open-mindedness and growth mindset is so important. And like, for example, like, I was watching some documentary about capitalism recently, and I heard about like this investor that is like always trying to find, like, call out fraudulent businesses and stuff like that. I know this is just kind of a weird example, but for example, I don't really, I guess, like, all of the work, all of the research, I guess the NT, like, logic required in order to like craft arguments and call people out and like change things through arguing like why someone is wrong. Like, I always feel like it's the ENTJs that are in the forefront of that are standing there arguing why the way that we're doing something doesn't make sense anymore and why we should do this instead. And you see that a lot in politics too, where like it's not always like the feeler that is in office that is proposing a new plan. It can be, but oftentimes the feelers in politics are the ones that are like making the motivational speech, trying to get people to care about maybe a group or a perspective that they weren't aware of before. But like, to actually go in there and crunch the numbers and explain why like our healthcare system or whatever system like isn't working, and like proposing a new idea of what we should do based on this fresh NI perspective. I'm just so grateful that you guys exist, because it's like something that I guess my FE sees is so needed, is people that are challenging the status quo and not afraid to be the ones to start the new thing and speak up and say like what's wrong with how things are now. And it's lonely. It's a lonely fight, you guys. Like, I get it. Like, it's lonely up top, and you guys are relentless with what you believe. Like, it is just very inspiring. And I'm not sure if you guys know the emotional impact of that. You know, I actually had an ENTJ professor in school who was, I don't think that I would be where I am today, like making videos and putting myself out there, if it wasn't for her, because she would just always pressure me in this way that it wasn't like, it might seem like emotionally uncaring to the untrained eye, but ENTJs can be sort of a hard ass, and that they push you to really face what it is that you really want whenever they care about you. In the sense that my professor would always be like, if you could do anything in the world with your degree, what would you do? And can you make a plan and steps for how you're going to get there? Because from her perspective, these things that you want to do, they aren't far off dreams. You can make a plan to get there, and you can't, there is like some like logical strategy that you can employ in order to get from point A to point B. If it's worth it to you, if the cost is worth it to you, then you can get there. And what I love about ENTJs is the way that they show their loved ones that how to live a life that is aligned with what matters to you, and also how to craft a plan in order to get where you want to go based on what actually matters to you, and how to think differently and push the envelope on things and build systems that allow, you know, things to run smoother. Because the ENTJs that I know that have gotten to some sort of place in their career or in their lives where they do feel accomplished, they're able to be just so much fun in like the life of the party, where and like make just, there's so much fun. I don't like, there's kind of a stereotype of ENTJs being workaholics, but the thing is that when an ENTJ truly is living in their passion and creating like from their heart, and they are in the groove of like building, I guess, building the new world, building a new way of doing things, they are able to, that's when their like introverted feeling kind of comes out, their inferior function, and they are happy with themselves. They're happy with, I guess, the job well done, and they're able to relax and have fun, and they tend to like to travel and just soak up, like with the SE and FI, they can really just soak up a lot of joy. And I guess I just think ENTJs are so much fun to talk to. They always make me think about things in a new way. And yeah, thank you guys, ENTJs, for being you. And I guess for those of you who are listening who aren't ENTJs, remember, ENTJs are humans. They are not superhumans. They might act like it. They might be very, you know, talented and smart and amazing and everything. But you know, ENTJs, you guys deserve a break too. You guys deserve a pat on the back. And I hope that you know how much the world, you know, appreciates you and loves you for all that you do. Because you are always thinking about others. Even if it's not in the same way as a feeler would, you're always thinking about the impact of your actions and about the chain reaction in everything you do. So thank you guys for watching. If you'd like to be typed, I do offer typing services. I offer mentorship that's based on the cognitive functions. I also have a membership group in which me and others discuss self-growth using the personality types. I host a virtual workshop within that group once a month. The first one is April 18th, and we're talking about surrender. So if you're interested in that, that is linked below. So thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day.